What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, a couple of stories today. I want to get your take, first of all, on this announcement by the Liberals today on 100% duty on Chinese EVs coming in, steel and aluminum tariffs going up. Really the first thing we've heard in a while from this government that's getting any attention at all. What'd you make of it?
It's like Justin Trudeau is possessed. What's going on here? I've heard more policy announcements in the past 72 hours than I have in the past 72 weeks. And remember, he's also going after the temporary foreign workers policy. It's kind of funny because certainly in terms of the foreign workers, and to a certain extent the tariffs, these are bread and butter issues. And let's face it, it'll be interesting to hear what Francois Legault's take is going to be on this sudden reversal. I'd love to hear what Mark Miller is going to say as well, because he's the immigration minister, and he's, like I say, he's literally and figuratively a good soldier, and he has been going to bat for the government policy thus far, which now is suddenly being changed. It was kind of an admission, maybe we got it wrong, maybe we're leaving too many people in here. You really get the impression, though, they finally figured out the house is on fire, Aaron. You really get the impression that they're out there in Halifax at the retreat, but they're basically getting seminars on how to use fire extinguishers because I think they're in a lot of trouble. And they realize that it's not just the polls that are showing that. I think it's almost becoming ingrained in the circuitry of Canadian politics that the Liberals are in big trouble. And it's going to be very, very difficult to shake that. We'll see what happens with these announcements. Certainly, a lot of people are already saying, well, big deal, Canada did it for the electric vehicles, but they were just falling into line with what the U.S. did last May. And temporary foreign workers, it would be difficult to paint this as anything other than caving to premiers in general, and quite frankly, Francois Legault in particular, who, as I've said in the past, does have a legitimate beef with this. The federal immigration policy has been, at the very least, erratic, and it has been very, very unfair in terms of the stress that it's placing on Quebec's immigration system. So, yeah, we'll see what's going to happen there. But I really get the impression that this is fire brigade politics, that they're just really trying to keep a lid on things. And it's almost as if somebody handed them a list of things that you've got to tackle this weekend, like right now. And this is why we're sort of like getting this news dump on Monday.
What's interesting to me, and I asked Vashi this before when we were talking about it because she's out there, is this idea that, it sounds great for Canada to stand up and say we're not going to let China push us around anymore, but we all know, Jim, that the Chinese are clearly not going to take this lying down. The question then becomes, what are they going to do in retaliation, and how much of that will Canadians want to accept?
Well, I mean, the question, first of all, whenever Trump announces a tariff, his critics always point out it's not the evil manufacturers of the country behind them that pays it. It's the consumer who pays for the increase. So listen, if you thought you were going to get a cheap Tesla from the plant in Shanghai, apparently that has changed. I'm not sure. I think they may have weighed whether, scoring points with this kind of democratic-leaning regime, and I say leaning because they have an election in November, but they want to score better get points with Washington rather than turn around and worry about what Beijing is going to do or not do. And in fact, this does push Canada away from any kind of suggestions, certainly from the Conservatives, although in many cases completely groundless. But the fact that there's too much foreign interference, i.e. China, in Canadian politics, it's a tough stand. It's interesting because it's not kind of like, oh well, we're gonna. It was a hard-edged announcement. It was clear that it was targeting China, and frankly said, if you build these cars someplace other than China, guess what? No tariffs. So it's a targeted attack, but like I say, I think at this point, there's a lot more concern about looking good in Washington than in Beijing.
By the way, you use the words cheap Tesla, and I thought to myself, there's no such thing. So I went and just checked really quickly online. You can buy a used Tesla for under $30,000. So there are cheap Teslas. Who knew?
Well, I mean, you learn something every day on
guess.
Montreal Now.
It's incredible.
Simple as that.
Cheap Teslas. All right, let me talk about the rail strike. It's over. It isn't over. It might be over. What's going on as far as you're concerned?
The headline this weekend was, CIRB, Canadian Industrial Relations Board, orders railway workers back onto the job. And the headline is fine, except when you go below the headline, you discover that it did no such thing. In fact, it did quite the contrary. It made it clear that it had no choice but to endorse the minister's incredible decision to invoke Section 107 of the Labor Code. And Aaron, I got to tell you straight up, when you and I talked about this, I had not seen 107. I just figured, you know what, it's a crisis thing. When it looks like, the public health and safety or whatever is going to be jeopardized or the economy is going to be jeopardized, we can do this, we can invoke it. Nothing of the kind. It is so vaguely worded, but essentially says the labor minister, when it's expedient, can do whatever he or she wants to secure industrial peace and promote conditions favorable to the settlement of industrial disputes, and may refer any question to the CIRB or direct the board to do such things as the minister deems necessary. In other words, to automatically endorse the minister's decision. And in fact, in its so-called, decision, the board points out that it had no discretion or ability to refuse to implement in whole or in part the minister's directions or to modify their terms. In other words, we had to take our big fat rubber stamp and endorse this. And right now, I don't know if you've had any labor lawyers on, there's more than a few labor lawyers today who are wondering just how independent the CIRB actually is. And, of course, the Teamsters are appealing this decision. They're going to federal court. I have a sneaking suspicion the judge is going to say, listen, you know what? It's in the law. And the only way to change that is to change the law. But I got to tell you, folks, if you have the time, it's online. Go look up Article 107. It is incredible how vaguely worded it is and the absolutely vast powers it gives the labor minister to basically intervene. And the crazy thing, Aaron, because you know what? Every now and then I decide to commit journalism on these things. Here is Steve McKinnon coming on like, walking tall with the big piece of wood there, comes out Thursday. I'm ordering you guys into binding arbitration. 1 week earlier, precisely, August 15th, CN asked McKinnon to do just that, to invoke binding arbitration. He told them, you have a duty to negotiate. And in fact, we have federal mediators standing by to help you guys out. But you know what? You've got to talk and reach an agreement. So I don't know what happened in those 7 days, buddy. I don't know what the come to Jesus moment was for Mr. McKinnon. But clearly, the whole tone that we're seeing as a Trudeau government is we're walking tall, we're rough and we're tough, and we're kicking butt, we're taking names, and we're not the sort of absentee landlords that we've been when it comes to Canadian governance for the past year.
But with respect to, how much weight this actually carries, I know they're back now, but if this thing doesn't get done, binding arbitration is supposed to be binding arbitration, right?
Exactly. And listen, the CIRB had, and this is, I mentioned this to you last week, they had decided that, believe it or not, and I don't agree with it, but they decided rail transport is not an essential service. Okay, fine. That's their decision. That means they can go on strike or get locked up. But here's the Fed turning around saying, no, can't even have a hint of that because it would be economic carnage, as Mr. McKinnon said today. So, yeah, it's going to be binding arbitration, but I'm not really sure because it's a crapshoot, right? Management may think it's going to, probably get the better deal, but there's nothing guaranteed, which is why you have to be very, very careful when you invoke this. The fact that CN apparently did try to get this thing done last week suggests maybe they figure the odds are on their side. We'll have to wait and see. But one thing's for sure, we may have rail service in this country right now, but the 9,000 unionized people who are providing it are not happy.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's the understatement. We'll see what goes on from there. Listen, real quick before we run out of time, I haven't mentioned this at all, but Donald Trump, Kamala Harris were supposed to be debating September 10th, and then this afternoon or this morning story breaks saying that Donald Trump, not so sure. What did he call ABC where this was supposed to be hosted?
The worst network ever. Okay?
Yeah.
No, the thing is, and remember, you're talking to a guy who suggested this guy may flee the country before the election. But all that said, no, he's going to weasel out of everything. He knows this is something he doesn't want to get into. And he'll, even with Fox, he'll make some outrage, and as he did earlier, He'll make some outrageous demand about a debate on Fox, and I have to have it full of my supporters. And basically, you're not allowed to talk, okay? But, he wants to get out of it. He knows it's a very, very bad place to be. And as I said earlier, you know what? Nobody's obliged to engage in debates of any kind in this day and age. So there you go.
Got to wonder, though, who that hurts the most. And I guess that's a coin flip.
Honestly, I hate to say it. It hurts mainstream media the most.
Yeah, that's probably
because they
true.
don't get the clip. They're not able to chug for 3 days on whatever happened in the debate. But the bottom line here is, I think the vast majority of voters, whether it's the States or indeed in Canada, don't really care that much about these debates.
Kind of a shame. I used to, even provincially, I think back to some of the debates, and they were great. Think back to the last one, the one that put people in the spotlight. You can't help but think back to Shashi Curl's question, of course, remember?
Absolutely.
That stuff mattered, and I don't know why they're not making a bigger stink. But then again, you're right about Trump. He'll probably find a way to weasel out. All right, Jim, thank you.
Adama.